April 19th, 1945. The cold mud of the Ruhr seeped through my tattered uniform. The mud of the Ruhr still clung to me, cold and thick, but this new mud was different. It was the churned earth of the Elbe River bank, softened by spring rain and the grinding wheels of American trucks. I stood in a line of other boys and old men, our field gray uniforms hanging like sacks on starved frames. The smell of diesel fuel from the idling jeeps was sharp and clean, cutting through the old stench of cordite and decay I carried with me. My gear was a joke. The rifle they gave me, a Czech piece from the last war, was gone. The weight left was the weight of my own bones, and the mud caked on my boots. It pulled at each step. My hollow stomach was a knot of pain, tighter than any belt. We shuffled forward toward a canvas canopy.
Next, move it along.
The voice was flat, tired. Not the shriek of an officer, not the fevered chant of a party leader. Just a man doing a job. Sergeant Miller sat behind a field table, his face shadowed by his helmet. His uniform was clean. His hands moved with a methodical ease, stacking papers, not grenades.
Name and unit.
I opened my mouth. My tongue felt like leather. Erich Baumann, Volkssturm Battalion 702.
Age?
The lie was ready. It had been ready for a year, 18. Sergeant Miller's eyes lifted from his clipboard. They were a pale, washed-out blue. They did not scan my face for defiance. They just looked. They saw the hollows under my eyes, the sharp line of my jaw where a boy's roundness should have been. He didn't call me a liar. He just wrote something down.
Over there. Get in line for the mess tent.
He gestured with his pen toward a smoking field kitchen. The smell hit me then, a wave of it. Real food, not turnip soup, not hardtack. The smell of meat and beans, thick and greasy. My knees went weak. The conflict wasn't with the guard. It was inside me. A desperate animal hunger fighting the last shred of drilled-in pride. To take food from the enemy was surrender, but my body was already turning, shuffling toward the smell. I stood in the new line, watching the GIs ladle the stew into mess tins for the men ahead of me. They moved without cruelty, without even much interest. One of them, a kid not much older than me, handed a full tin to an old man in a tattered greatcoat. The old man's hands shook so badly he almost dropped it. The GI steadied the man's grip with a nod, then turned back to the pot. That simple act, that small mercy, was a crack in the world. The true monster wasn't the enemy soldier before me. It was the ghost of the man who gave me this uniform, who sent me here with a rusted rifle and a head full of lies, who would have let me starve in a ditch for a cause that had already abandoned everyone. The enemy showed a humanity my own leaders had forgotten existed. The tin was warm in my hands. The weight of it, solid and full, was the first honest thing I had held in months. The warm tin in my hands felt like a dream. I stared at the thick brown stew. The smell of real meat and potato rose up, a rich cloud that made my stomach cramp with want and my mind spin with disbelief. Before I could take a bite, a sharp whistle cut the air. An American sergeant stood on the tailgate of a jeep, his hands cupped around his mouth.
All right. Move out. Form a line. Single file towards the white tents. Move.
The order was a bucket of cold water. The warmth fled my fingers. We shuffled, a river of gray rags and hollow faces, away from the food truck. My eyes stayed locked on the sergeant. He held a clipboard, not a rifle. That was the first strangeness. The line snaked towards a row of large canvas tents near the riverbank. The mud here was churned by 1,000 boots. It sucked at my own oversized boots with a wet smacking sound. The weight of my empty rifle sling still pulled on my shoulder, a ghost limb. I expected barbed wire. Machine gun nests. I braced for a blow, for a barked command to kneel. My heart was a trapped bird, beating against my ribs. Instead, we reached the first tent. 2 soldiers with armbands stood at a table. One had a large metal pitcher.
Drink. 1 cup each. Keep moving.
A tin cup was pushed into my hand. Clear. Cold water filled it. I drank it down in one gulp. It was clean. It tasted of nothing, which was a miracle. No mud, no rust, no chemical tang, just water. The next soldier pointed to a crate beside the table.
Drop all personal weapons, sidearms, knives, grenades in the crate.
My hand went to my belt. My knife was gone, lost days ago. I had nothing to surrender but my own brittle bones. The man in front of me, an older soldier with a grizzled face, slowly placed a Luger pistol into the crate. It landed with a heavy final clunk. We were herded into the tent. The air inside was thick with the smell of damp wool, sweat, and a sharp, clean scent I did not know. Antiseptic. Benches were arranged in rows. More soldiers walked the aisles.
Sit. Remove your boots and socks.
A murmur went through the men. This was not interrogation. This was inspection. I fumbled with the cold, stiff laces of my boots. My socks were ragged, my feet pale and blistered. A soldier paused in front of me, looked, and moved on. Then the sergeant stopped at a boy, 2 benches over. He was younger than me, maybe 15. He was shaking.
Your foot, son. Let me see.
The boy flinched as the sergeant, this enemy, knelt in the mud and straw of the tent floor. He took the boy's filthy foot in his gloved hand, examining a deep, angry cut.
Medic to Station 3. We've got an infection here.
The sergeant's voice was not gentle, but it was matter-of-fact. Professional. He was treating a wound. My own leaders would have called that boy a coward, started the boy a coward. They would have left him to rot. I looked at my own hands, still clutching the empty tin cup. The conflict inside me was a silent scream. I had been prepared to die fighting this man. I had been prepared for his hatred. His mercy was a weapon I had no defense against. It shattered the last wall inside me. The monster was not here. The monster was a ghost whispering from a burning chancellery 100 miles away. And this enemy with his clipboard and his medic was just a man doing a job that, for this one moment, involved cleaning a child's wound. The line inched forward. My turn came. The guard at the table was a sergeant. His uniform was clean, his face shaved. He looked like a man who ate real food and slept in a real bed. He held a clipboard. I stood before him, my uniform a sack of mud and blood, my bones aching with a hollow weight.
Name.
His voice was flat, not angry, not kind. It was the voice of a man checking items off a list. I stared at the wood grain of the table. I saw a small dark stain. I wondered if it was coffee. Erich Baumann.
Age.
The question hung in the air. I felt the eyes of the men behind me. I felt the ghost of the political officer who had handed me the rifle. I had been told what to say. A man of 16 is a soldier. A boy is a liability. 18.
He did not look up from his paper. His pen scratched. He knew. He had to know. My voice was a boy's voice. My face was a child's face stretched over a skull. But he wrote it down. Unit.
Volkssturm. Battalion. I do not remember the number. It does not matter.
He finally looked at me. His eyes were a pale, tired blue. They moved from my hollow eyes to the crusted blood on my sleeve. He did not see an enemy. He saw a problem. A broken thing that needed processing. You are wounded.
It was not a question. I did not answer. I waited for the blow. For the shout. For the hand that would shove me toward the other pens. The men who could still fight went one way. The wounded went another. We all knew what that meant.
He put his pen down. He leaned back in his chair. The wood creaked. He sighed. It was a long, weary sound, like a man letting go of a heavy pack. Medic.
He called it over his shoulder, not to a guard. To a man in a different uniform with a red cross on his arm. The medic came. He had a kit. He looked at my arm. His fingers were clean.
Get him cleaned up. Then the chow line.
I flinched when the medic touched my sleeve. The sergeant watched. His expression did not change. He picked up his pen again. He looked past me to the next boy in line.
Next.
The medic led me away. I looked back. The sergeant was already asking the next boy his name, his age, his unit. The same flat voice. The same pen scratching. I was a line on a form. A statistic. To my own people, I had been a symbol. A last bullet. To this enemy, I was just a task to be completed. The mercy was colder than any hatred. It left no room for pride. No room for anything at all. The medic led me to a long tent. The air inside was warm and thick with the smell of stew. Real stew. Meat and potatoes. My stomach clenched like a fist. They gave me a metal bowl. The weight of it in my hands felt foreign. I sat on the ground with others. No one spoke. The only sound was the scrape of spoons and the low rumble of a generator outside. I ate. I did not taste it. I just swallowed. It was fuel. A guard walked past, his boots heavy on the wooden planks laid over the mud.
You. The one from the line.
I looked up. Sergeant Miller stood over me. He held a clipboard. His face was tired. He did not look angry.
Stand up.
I stood. The empty bowl clattered on the ground. My knees felt weak. He consulted his list. He looked from the paper to my face. His eyes were different now, not flat. Something else was there. Pity. It was worse than anger.
Your papers say you were with the 9th Army remnants, that you were east of the Elbe when you were collected.
I nodded. My throat was too dry to speak.
The 9th. That was part of the Stalingrad army group, the survivors.
He said it not as a question, but as a statement of fact. A death sentence. I had heard the rumors in the last weeks. Whispers in the dark.
There is an agreement between us and the Soviets. Prisoners captured in the Soviet zone of operations are to be repatriated. Handed over.
The word hung in the air. Repatriated. It sounded clean. Official. The generator's rumble seemed to grow louder, vibrating in my teeth. I saw the faces of the political officers from the radio broadcasts, the stories from the East that no one was supposed to tell. You are sending me back.
It is not my decision. It is the agreement.
He would not meet my eyes. He looked at his clipboard. This man, this enemy, had given me food. His medic had cleaned the cut on my arm. Now he was telling me calmly that he would put me on a truck that would go east. The true monster was not the uniform in front of me. It was the invisible hand that had pushed me across a river to die, and now reached across a continent to claim what was left. My own leaders had sent a child to stop tanks. These men would send a prisoner to the frozen jails, dead.
I know.
That was all he said. I know. 2 words that held no mercy, only a cold and helpless truth. He turned and walked away, his boots thumping on the planks. The smell of the stew turned sour in my nose. The warmth from the food was gone. I was cold again, colder than I had ever been on the riverbank. They were not killing me, they were just erasing me. Fulfilling an agreement, the justice of it was perfect, and it broke me. The sergeant's words hung in the air. They were not killing me. They were just erasing me. I stood there, the tin bowl heavy in my skeletal hands. The steam from the stew was gone. The smell was just grease, and salt now, thick in my throat. Around me, the camp moved. Men shuffled in lines. A jeep engine coughed to life somewhere. The sound raw and metallic. I heard English words I did not understand, sharp and quick. Orders. They were just orders. My own breath hitched. A cold terror, different from the fear of shells, began to coil in my gut. It was a slow sinking thing. Repatriated. The word Sergeant Miller used. It meant a transaction, a handover. They would give me to the Red Army. I saw the faces of the men from the newsreels. The men from Stalingrad. The men whose cities we had burned. It would not be a prisoner camp. It would be a ditch. A frozen railway siding. A gulag where you worked until your bones were dust. The panic rose, a physical wave. It tightened my chest. My hands shook, making the leftover stew slosh against the tin. The weight of my own body, of the filthy uniform, felt immense. I was going to be given away, but active, like spoiled cargo.
You finished with that?
His voice was close. He had come back. He stood a few feet away, his face unreadable. He wasn't looking at my face. He was looking at the bowl. The conflict was not in his eyes. It was in the space between us. Him, with the power to sign a paper. Me, with the power to sign a paper. Me, with the power only to tremble. I did not hand him the bowl. I clutched it tighter. The metal edge bit into my palm.
The bowl, son.
It was not a request. It was the next step in the process. I was holding up the process. The stew was a part of it. First the food, then the paperwork, then the truck east. You cannot send me back.
It's not my call. Agreements were made. Yalta, you understand. High-level stuff.
He said it flatly, Yalta. A word that meant nothing to me a year ago. Now it was the sound of a cell door closing. They sent me here, my own people. They gave me a rifle I could barely lift and told me to die for a flag in a bunker hundreds of kilometers away. And now you will hand me to them. My voice cracked. It was not a shout. It was a thin, breaking sound.
I have my orders.
He reached for the bowl. His hand was steady, clean. I saw the pale line of a wedding band. So did I. The words left me. They hung there. The true monster was not this tired American sergeant. It was not the Russian soldier who would meet the truck. The monster was the thing that made orders more sacred than boys, that made agreements more important than mercy. He stopped. His hand did not take the bowl. He looked at me then, really looked, at the hollows of my eyes, at the mud backside.
I know.
He said it again, the same 2 words. But the meaning had shifted. The cold truth was still there, but it was no longer helpless. It was heavy. It was a weight he carried, too. He lowered his hand.
Finish your food, then report to the sanitation tent. You stink. We'll see about the paperwork.
He turned and walked away, his boots crunching on the gravel. The Jeep engine sputtered and died. In the sudden quiet, I heard only my own heart. I looked down at the stew. It was cold grease now. I brought the bowl to my lips and drank it all. It was the most human thing I had done in weeks. I walked. My legs were stiff, each step a separate thought. The bowl was empty in my hands, slick with grease. I could still smell the stew, a rich ghost of meat and potato. It made my stomach ache in a new way. The sanitation tent was a green canvas blur ahead. Sergeant Miller's Jeep sat silent beside it, a machine of war, now just a heap of cold metal. I heard a voice from the tent flap, low and sharp.
You, boy, in here.
I stepped inside. The air was thick with a sharp, clean stink of disinfectant. It burned my nose. Miller stood behind a folding table, a stack of papers and a metal clipboard before him. A single electric lantern hung from the center pole, casting hard shadows.
Name.
Erich Baumann.
Unit.
Volkssturm. Battalion 914.
Age.
I opened my mouth. The number caught in my throat. I was 16. To say it was to admit everything. The lie I had carried, the rifle too heavy for my shoulder, the uniform that hung from my bones like a shroud. I swallowed. The taste of the stew turned sour. 16.
He did not look up from his writing. His pen scratched across the paper. The sound was final. It was the sound of a record. Of being known. You'll be processed. Transferred to a holding camp. Your war is over.
The words should have been a relief. A door opening. But all I saw was another fence. Another cage, and beyond it the smoking ruins of my country. The men who had given me that rifle. The fanatics with armbands who patrolled our own streets. My hands began to shake. The empty bowl trembled against my leg.
Something wrong, son.
He finally looked at me. His eyes were tired, but they were clear. They were not the eyes of the political officers. They were not the eyes of the SS major who had inspected our pathetic line of old men and boys, his lip curled in disgust. The training shattered. The soldier facade, thin as ice, evaporated. I was just a boy. A terrified, hungry boy who had seen men turn to red mist and had cowered in cellars as the world burned. I stumbled forward. My knees hit the edge of the table. The wood was solid, real. I clutched it. My knuckles were white against the dirty green paint. My voice broke. It was a thin, ragged sound. Bitte. I saw my reflection in the dark lens of his flashlight on the table, hollow eyes and a skeletal face. Bitte, nicht zurück. The words were a whisper, then a plea that tore from my chest. They will kill me. If you send me back, they will kill me. The retreat is chaos. They shoot deserters. They shoot boys who lost their rifles. Please. I was begging the enemy from my life. The weight of the uniform, the mud, the blood, it all meant nothing. It was just a costume for a death that was not even my own. Do not send me back.
He had stopped writing. His pen was still. He looked at my hands on his table. He looked at my face. A long silence filled the tent, broken only by the hum of the lantern. Nobody is sending you back into that, son.
He said it quiet, flat, a simple statement of fact. But I kept begging. The words wouldn't stop. You don't understand. They have lists. They have orders.
I understand enough.
He put his pen down. The click was soft.
The war here is finished. Your war is finished. You are a prisoner. That is all.
He reached not for his pistol, but for a different form on the stack. His movement was slow, deliberate. I stared at his hands. They were the hands that had held the weapon that could have ended me. Now they held a paper that might save me. The true monster was not the man in front of me. The monster was the ghost at my back, the one that sent children to die for a cause that had already consumed itself. The sergeant did not laugh. He did not call me a coward. He looked past me, at the long, shuffling line of hollow men, and then back. His eyes held a deep, weary sadness I'd never seen in a German officer.
The war here is finished. Your war is finished. You are a prisoner. That is all.
He reached not for his pistol, but for a different form on the stack. His movement was slow, deliberate. I stared at his hands. They were the hands that had held the weapon that could have ended me. Now they held the paper that might save me. The true monster was not the man in front of me. The monster was the ghost at my back, the one that sent children to die for a cause that had already consumed itself.
Name.
My voice was a dry rustle in my throat. Erich Baumann.
Age.
I hesitated. The lie was a reflex worn smooth from months of repetition. 18.
He did not look up from the form. He just wrote. The scratch of his pen was the only sound between us. Date of birth.
The date I had memorized for the Volkssturm clerk came to my lips, a date that made me a man. April 12, 1926.
He stopped writing. He looked at me. Really looked. His gaze moved over my skeletal frame, the uniform that hung on me like a sack, the hollows of my cheeks. He saw the boy beneath the grime. Look at me, son.
I forced my eyes to meet his. They were the color of river stones.
That would make you 19. Is that right?
The truth felt like a physical weight, pulling at my insides. I could not speak. I gave one small, stiff nod.
He let out a long, slow breath. It fogged in the cold air. He put his pen down. The click was soft. My boy is 17.
He said it to the form, not to me. Then his hand went to the pocket of his field jacket. He pulled out a small brown papered bar. He placed it on the desk between us. The paper was crisp and clean. I stared at it. I knew what it was. We had seen them in the pockets of dead Americans. Chocolate. The smell was faint, but it cut through the stink of mud and fear. A sweet foreign promise.
He used a single finger to slide it across the rough wood toward me. You're not going back, son.
My hand trembled as I reached for it. The paper was smooth. The bar inside was solid, heavy. A profound, simple weight. I had not held anything so clean in a year. I looked from the chocolate to his face. The sadness was still there, but it was mixed with something else. A hard certainty. Thank you.
He picked up his pen again. He did not look at me. He wrote a new date on the form, the real one, next.
The sergeant did not look at me again. He just wrote. The sound of his pen was a soft scratch against the form. I stood there, the chocolate bar heavy in my hand. I could smell the paper wrapper, a scent of wax and something sweet I had forgotten. He reached for a stamp. It was a wooden block with a metal face. He pressed it into a small ink pad, black and thick. He lifted it, paused for a second over my paper, and then brought it down with a firm, final thud. Next, a different guard. One I had not seen before took my arm. His grip was firm but not cruel. He pulled me away from the table. I looked back at Sergeant Miller. He was already speaking to the man behind me, his face a mask of weary routine. The guard shoved me, not toward the line of trucks with their engines grumbling, the ones pointed east. He pushed me toward the west, toward a different line of men, shorter, quieter, standing near a pair of canvas-topped jeeps. I stumbled. My gear, a torn bread bag, and an empty canteen slapped against my hip. The weight was nothing. I was used to the weight of a rifle, the weight of expectation. This was just the weight of emptiness. I looked at the paper in my other hand. The stamp was still wet. The black ink spelled out a single word in English. I did not know the word, but I knew it was not the same as the others. A man in the new line caught my shoulder to steady me. He was older, his face gaunt like mine. He did not speak. He just nodded toward the jeeps. I climbed into the back of one. The metal floor was cold through the thin seat of my trousers. The engine coughed to life. The sound was a raw gasoline roar. It vibrated up through the frame and into my bones. As the jeep pulled away, I turned. I looked back at the processing station. I saw Sergeant Miller at his table, a dark shape against the gray sky. He was just a man doing a job with a pen and a stamp. And I understood. The true monster was not the enemy. The monster was the idea that had taken a boy, put a rifle in his hands, and told him to die for a flag that was already burning. The monster had a name, and it was not Sergeant Miller. The man beside me offered a sip from his canteen. The water was warm and tasted of metal. It was the best thing I had ever tasted. We drove west, away from the river, away from the war. The wind was cold, but it was clean. It did not smell of cordite or mud or death. It just smelled of air. I had survived Stalingrad. I had survived the retreat, the hunger, the fear. But this quiet mercy from a stranger was a different kind of survival. It was the first breath of a peace I did not yet know how to live. I unwrapped the chocolate. I broke off a small piece. The smell was rich and deep. I put it on my tongue and let it melt. The sweetness was almost a pain. It was a victory, my victory. Not in surviving the war, but in surviving its end. 50 years have passed, but I can still smell that chocolate. It is a ghost that haunts me more gently than the others. That taste, it taught me a new vocabulary. A single act of mercy from a man I was taught to see as a beast held more meaning than all the grand speeches of the fatherland. It unraveled the world for me, thread by thread. The characters, incidents, and dialogue in this video are dramatized for narrative and entertainment effect, while some events may be inspired by real-life themes. This story is a work of fiction,